Welcome to Why Your Business is Invisible Online, the podcast that connects businesses online with the people they want to serve. Joining me are my two co-hosts, and here they are.
I'm Jim Filatico. When I'm not helping my clients grow their businesses online, you can find me traveling with friends and family.
Hi, I'm Kelly Biggs, and I'm the AT alien of the group. I love hanging with friends and family, and when I'm not doing that, you can find me on Peloton. I've clocked over 2,000 rides so far.
And I'm your host, John Manatas from Oakville, Ontario, Canada, with my guitar in hand, my Wi-Fi on life support, but always in tune with my clients. So this week, I have Kelly and Jim with me. Let's jump into our myth busting. We definitely have a few more myths we want to get to, and we're going to talk about you can set it and forget it to kick things off. And that's all about, I guess the individuals that we've all encountered where they just do the basics and then think magically things will appear. They're suddenly going to get tons of leads and so forth. And that is a recipe for not getting the experience you want out of digital. Forget about being found. You're never going to get a lead if you just set it and forget it.
I have an example of, I remember talking to a prospect actually pretty recently, but the prospect was a photographer, right? And so she was in need of SEO. She's like, yeah, the person I've been working with just hasn't been doing a good job. I'm not showing up in Google. And I was like, oh, okay. But as you dig under the covers, and this is why we don't disparage anybody, right? I was like, okay, so what are you having them doing? Are you writing blogs? Like, what's going on? She was like, well, he's just not updating anything like I used to do. I used to do Christmas pictures. Mm-hmm. And I noticed that my Santa pictures are still up there. And I was like, okay, like what did they help me understand? Did they do your website for you? And then like, are they continuing to do SEO? Like that should happen monthly. Like you set a plan and you kind of figured it out. And she was like, no, they're doing website maintenance. I was like, what? Yeah, that won't, that's not the same thing, right? Like website maintenance is they're just making sure the lights are on and everything's coming. So I guess in that regard, she didn't set it and forget it, but she was not updating and wondering why. I guess it just didn't update itself. I don't know. And then she's like, also, I've been in business for 10 years and by now I should be on the first page of Google. But Google me, you don't see anything. But no, she's never done any SEO. So no, just because and they do care about experience. So in some ways they're like, hey, the site has been there for a long time. We can trust it. But no, they're also looking to see, but has it been updated, right? So that's my example of set and forget. And I think you can also see that sometimes in when people are doing ads, and they run the same old ads over and over again. At some point, you've reached the
saturation.
Saturation point.
Saturation. Yeah. I was thinking of an economic term that we learned: the law of diminishing returns.
There you go.
Right. Like it's like okay, it will peak.
Yeah.
At some point, it will peak, and you got to do some tweaks to it. But yeah.
Interesting. I'm surprised there are still people out there that think they can set anything in this world and forget it. And suddenly, you're going to start getting the results you were expecting. How about you, Jim? Any interesting?
Yeah, I mean, I think just in general, when you're speaking with small businesses or businesses that are sole entrepreneurs, I think the case is they think that they have a website. If they build a website, they go to pick one, GoDaddy or a Wix or whatever, and they follow the directions and they have their 5-page website, home, services, about me, contact us, maybe an imagery section or whatever. They're done. And they think because they did that, they should show up, and they're going to show up. Mm-hmm. And in all cases, that's not the case. Yeah. I mean, and so like one I just recently worked with, It's a small medical company. They've been in business for, I think, 5 or 6 years now. Built a website. Again, the generic headers for all the different pages. There's no good way for Google to find them. They had no SEO. They had none of the technical things that we've talked about so many times, the backbone of the website, because they didn't know any better. And I think that's the misnomers. People think that by building a website, it's just going to be there, and it's not. And so you have to explain, and I explained to this woman that, it's nice looking. I like the imagery and those kind of things. You don't have enough content. So there's not enough information in there for Google to say, yep, they're the expert. You don't have the backbone, like we've talked about, that shows Google's bots that they'll find you. And it's frustrating for them because they assume they did everything right. And the problem is if you wanted to build a website and have it set up for SEO and have it found sooner rather than later, it's going to cost you double, if not more, than what your home built website would cost. And so when you have that conversation with somebody, and when I had this conversation with the woman, it's like, well, I don't want to spend that much monthly. I already have a website, and it's like, yeah, but if you're not being found, you've spent money for nothing.
Exactly.
And it's really hard, and we kind of have to be the bad guy, because when we do have that conversation with somebody that needs a website, we explain what it's going to take and that they have homework, right? Yeah,
exactly.
And they have to, they have to provide that. But in many cases, and this medical company is just one of them, but in many cases, it's just that they don't understand what it takes to actually be found online. And it's not just building a website.
It's almost like, for us, in many cases, that we tend to get new business because others have gone through the set it and forget it experience. In other words, their previous provider, whoever it is, hasn't taken the time to walk them through what it takes to actually be found online. And then when you are found, what it takes for your website to actually start working for you.
Right.
I think, it really, I don't have any examples like that because honestly, with a lot of my clients, I think we all do this. We spend a lot of time up front walking them through all the work we're going to do just to build the website, and then what comes afterwards. I think a lot of them are blown away when they hear, really, I have to do all that? I thought I was just going to sort of wing it off the top of my head, and the content in my pages, I have it all in my head. Well, yes and no. I mean, we have to work strategically with some keywords for your business in that content and embed them. Otherwise, the robot isn't going to find the things it needs to find to put you on page one.
And like I was saying with that, like those sole entrepreneurs too, sometimes they haven't dealt with anybody on the outside yet, a digital marketer or anything like that, or any marketing firms. And so it's just one of those things that they have to do to get started in business. And even doing their Google business profile, when you say that's critical, you have to have that done. And we've talked about that a lot, but they don't even realize they have to do that.
Yeah, that's another one. Exactly.
Yeah.
Which we see as basic. You're right. But a lot of them, like I think that the stat was over 40% haven't even claimed their Google business profile, which is, it's not a website, but it's like a mini website with a lot of information in some ways about you. And it's a give me. I mean, Google sets it up for you, and pretty much all you got to do is take the time to fill in the blanks together with somebody like us. And it gives you a great head start. So it's just something I'm surprised to see that is even still a myth out there, but it is. It is. I mean, people just believe that they can just build a website and suddenly magic will happen. And the fact that it still exists as a myth shocks me. I
have a situation where it's actually a company I worked for back in the day, years back when I was still in corporate. I got involved with, it was an electrical company. Manufacturer, and I got involved I was in the marketing side and sales marketing side, and I got involved because we were coming out with new products. And so we needed to have that information on the website. so that people from the government, from the military, from just consumers or electricians could see the information. And there was a lot of pushback as far as spending any money on adding that information to the website, because at that point, and this was 2015 or so, at that point, we weren't selling online. So why did we need to add all this information to the website? We have distributors that do that. We don't need to have that information. And it was amazing that they didn't want to spend the money. I mean, they were spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, on these new products. But to actually have the information out there, once we had the patents and all that kind of stuff, I get it before you don't have patents, but once you get that information out there that people can learn about and go to and spec, add it to their specs, why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't you?
But yet it was a fight, just because you don't need to put it on the internet. We're not selling it, on the internet. Well, okay. But, where else are they going to find the information? So
exactly.
It's a great thing, and the website didn't change for years. And then once we changed it, and I was a part of that, once we changed it, it was more of almost like a website for investors and for banks, and not for our end users. And you had to click like 5 or 6 times to get to the actual company homepage to be able to find out anything about the products. And it was like, oh my gosh.
It's funny that you say that, Jim. I think manufacturers are probably some of the biggest culprits of set it and forget it, right?
Absolutely.
You go to their website, you feel like it's almost like a catalog. Like, I'm just going to put my information out there in a catalog. You're not thinking about, to your point, what are the keywords? What are things you can put in there that whoever is looking for, like, they got it. You want to make it easy for people to work with you, to do business with you. Manufacturers, we've worked with some of them, and what we found is that, yeah, they're pretty notorious for that. I check the box, I'm good, and they leave it alone. The other thing, you then run the risk of, we just had this happen this past week, is one of the clients that we built a website for, and they were a pretty big company. And when we did their website, they were like, all we needed to be is informational, don't need anything else. Well, they wrote us back because they're ready to do a refresh, or called us. And then they said, oh yeah, by the way, nobody can contact us right now. Like, our contact us page isn't working. And so my husband actually started to look behind the scenes, and God bless them, like some of their licenses had expired. And they don't know. Like, they don't know. No. They haven't even looked. But
right. Check the email box for the contact us at whatevercompany.com. Yeah. And there's 52 emails in there not opened.
Well, they can't even get to them because so there's that. But yeah, like, it's a cost. It's a cost of doing business at a minimum, right? At a minimum, you want to make sure your website is up and working well.
That, and like, if you think about it, for the set it and forget it folks out there, and then, like we said, there's still quite a few of them. If you don't evolve it, you look out of touch. Like your entire brand, sort of, people will go to your website. Let's say you get found, and then they're going to say, "Wow, that looks old." Like, or even the design is old. It looks stale, or some of the stuff, some of the information on it is like out of date in terms of what's going on with the times.
Yeah.
It's a living, breathing piece of your brand. And
back in the day, it used to be no white space. Then it moved to white space. Then it moved to parallax. Like, there are style changes. And this reminds me of, I remember I had a friend who I worked with. We were in banking together, and he I remember him telling me, because I guess you guys could maybe identify with this, because the women, I don't think, have this problem as much. But he was like, yeah, every year I change my wardrobe. 10% of my wardrobe, I change. Like, I go out and I take 10% of it and I throw that out and I buy 10% new.
Jim, we're doing it all wrong, Jim.
Because
10%.
and then so that a decade later I will have replaced my entire closet and I don't look like I'm living in the decade before. And I always thought that was like the smartest thing. And I try to make sure I do that for my husband because, now women, we don't, we're any excuse to
do it in one
shop.
season.
Yeah.
Guilty.
No, yeah, I got to start doing that.
Yeah.
It'll take us 10 years though to replace our wardrobe, Jim, but that's okay. We'll be close to being in style.
That's right. It'll come back around.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're right. When you look at a website and you see, the latest and greatest is from 4 years ago, it's like, really?
Yeah.
And you see that all the time. You know what I mean? You see that so many times when you look at a website when the, brand new product that just came out in 2020. And it's like, when was the last time you looked at your own website?
It's funny, some of the tradespeople, electricians, some of the contractors too, who are just starting out, they have that mindset. Set it and forget it. I really don't have to do that much. Like, what do you mean? I'm telling them what I do. How different can it be? And I guess we get into that conversation. I go, that's the whole point. I mean, the reason to have a website is because yours has to be the one that's different out there to make you stand out, not like everybody else. So anyway, I think we pretty much beat this one. We definitely are saying you cannot set it and forget it. So there goes that myth. Let's transition to this one, which is super, super important, and it's going to get even more important with AI. In fact, the three of us just recently did a quick lookup on a topic with respect to personal injury lawyers, and we were expecting a certain company to be at the top when we did an AI lookup, and it wasn't. And we sort of figured out the reason why the company we thought would be there didn't make it to the top of our search was because of the reviews. The reviews just weren't as good as some of the other companies. So negative online reviews don't matter. We hear that. We hear that from people. That the negative one, doesn't really make a difference in the end. Now, if you have one negative one and there are 1,000 great ones, it probably isn't going to make much of a dent. But that's not what we're talking about here. Negative reviews do matter. And I think we all agree when you get a negative review, you have to respond to it. You can't just let it sit there, sulk about it, and think somehow it's just going to get covered by all my good ones. You need to respond. So I'll stop there. I'll pause there for now. I just want to give you guys some stats before we go on to some of the stories you guys have had with negative reviews. So the number is pretty high here. 82% of shoppers that they actually specifically look at the negative reviews to gauge, which one's the worst in this pile of negatives, and that really helps them decide, whether I'm going to do any business with this company. So that's a big one. And 45% of consumers say they are likely to visit a business if it actually takes the time to intelligently respond to reviews. So handling that criticism in a really professional way puts you a lot further ahead than a lot of your competition. So two good stats to sort of get us started. Any interesting things that are going on in the world of reviews with your clients? I
had a jewelry store. It was a jewelry store that had multiple outlets back in the day, and as things started to consolidate, they decided to just focus on one town. And so they were focusing on this town. And so they didn't have many reviews or recent reviews. And that's the other thing you have to be concerned about is when the reviews are 4 or 5 years old, then what's going on with the business, right? So this one happened to it had quite a few good reviews. It probably had, I think it was 25 or 30 good reviews, but it had 3 1-star reviews. It happened to be all from a similar, the same day. And they got torn apart. that they were treating customers poorly and that they were rude and all these kind of things.
Sounds like
Turns
an
out-
employee problem.
What's that?
Could be an
Sounds
employee
like
problem.
Is it an employee problem?
No, that's the first thing you think, right? And I thought the same thing. No, turns out they were shoplifting and they got busted. And so they got asked to leave the store. They got asked never to come back.
Wow.
And so what did these, and they were teens, I believe. What did they do? They put bad reviews on.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. It's certain, it's funny. I just heard that the other day. My son, who's a bit younger, is in his 20s, and I was just eavesdropping on the conversation, and basically they were pissed off about some experience they had, and the first thing out of their mouth was, "Oh, I'm going to write some bad reviews." And let's all of us gang up and write some bad reviews. So I wonder if that happens everywhere. I'm not sure, but yeah. They know that negative reviews matter.
Yeah, and this happened right for my situation. It happened right when I was we were working and actually building a new website for them, and he didn't know what to do. And I said, what you need to do is respond saying, "I'm really sorry you had a bad experience in our store. I would suggest next time you don't try to steal the jewelry, and maybe you won't have such a bad experience."
That would be a good one.
Because you know what I mean? And that's the replying to negative reviews. I mean, that's the ultimate, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at least when someone reads the review, and like you said, 45% of the people look at them, right? If they look at it and they see why it's a negative review,
mm-hmm.
then they'll give them the benefit of the doubt, the store. You know what I mean? If someone's trying to steal from them, of course they're going to get a bad review. That's why they got a bad review, otherwise wouldn't have gotten it. Or like I've had restaurant ones where they complain about, during COVID, they complained about their COVID policies. Or, they were doing the drive-through thing during COVID, and they complained because, the lot wasn't snowplowed well or something. That has nothing to do with the food.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. So
mm-hmm.
That's why if you respond to these reviews and especially the negative ones, I mean, what I tell everybody when it comes to reviews is it's a billboard. When you respond as the owner or as the manager, it's a billboard for other people to read. And so lean into that. But the negative ones, don't promise anything online, because then you're going to be promising that to everybody that reads the review. I got 20% off. Well, I want 20% off. I'm going to give you a better review, right?
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? That you've got to make sure that, if you put it in a perspective, you have a much better chance of people understanding why you're not a 5.0, right?
Exactly.
So that's the most extreme example I have, is the jewelry store one.
Hey, Jim, the jewelry store one, I'm going to learn something here. So, I mean, typically you don't know who's trying to shoplift. How did they get the names? Like, did they actually have to do some research with the police department or something? Did these guys get caught and arrested, or how did it work? They caught
him and asked him to leave. They didn't call the police. They caught him and asked him to leave. And like the next day they got the review. So he knew.
It was them. He didn't know. Okay, he didn't match up names. Yeah. He just said, right. Okay, it's obviously
right. Exactly. Yeah, and figured it out.
These 2 or 3 or however many there were.
Yeah, I think it was 3 people. Yeah.
Yeah. On that point, I'm actually dealing with one right now where one of my HVAC client just got a 1-star review just yesterday and had to go through the whole speech around. Okay, let's respond professionally, run it by me. What do you want to say? We'll write it professionally. But I said, there's a process. Google doesn't necessarily listen to your response right away. Now he wanted it removed because mm-hmm. basically it wasn't even about his company. This wasn't one of his clients. It was another similar company. And so, because his company name is very close to this lousy HVAC indoor air quality company, and unfortunately he got the review, and it was the other company that should have gotten this terrible review. So he's obviously going to Google now and saying, I want to remove this. So Google has a process. They say it takes 3 days. It doesn't. Today's my 4th day of checking it and to see if they've actually got.
They don't mean consecutive days.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I guess that's true. There was a weekend in between. So. Anyway, I'll be checking this every day to see if they're going to mm-hmm. come to some decision. And even after that, if I don't like the decision, then Google has an appeals process. So I'm getting ready for that too. Like, what are we going to say to appeal this once they come to a decision? And I hope Google gives us some kind of reasoning. Besides, usually it's just no. They don't, without any reason. Basically, the answer is no and period, and we're done. So anyway, just thought I'd throw that in for our audience to hear, like what kind of things you need to do sometimes when you get these negative reviews, because they do really matter.
And so I'm going to do a counterpoint to why I think they're I'll say, okay, they do matter. I can't say that they don't matter, but it is also not the end of the world. I remember having a client who was so proud of their 5-star review. They were so proud, and they finally get that. And it's interesting. People apparently are, I guess, like the country, very extreme. Either you got a 5 or a 1. There's no in between, anymore. Except in e-commerce, I find e-commerce to be a lot more fair that way. But
what kind of client was this? Was this what
this is an accountant? This is one of my accounting clients, and they get their first bad review, and they were just beside themselves. Same thing. They wanted to get it off. That's the first reaction. I want this off. Well, did they come? Did you serve them? Yes. Okay, we can't get it off. Like, we cannot. But
That's not how it works.
Right. But let's respond. And to your point, Jim, I was like, now you want to say, hey, give us a call. We're sorry you had that experience. Give us a call and let's see what we can do. Or I'd like to talk to you, and don't make any promises, but at least somebody else seeing it. Everybody knows that things happen. Right. And in fact, more people will believe the company that has a 4.9
yes
then they do the one that has a 5.0, right? Over time. The other thing, I'll give you another anecdotal story. I'm in the process, as you guys know, of finishing my basement.
Yes.
And so along that process, then you have to make all these decisions about certain things. So we are currently making a decision about a shower system. And so
I remember that.
Yeah. So I was like, I was sold on this one. I'm like, this is the one we're going to get it. Beautiful, matte, black, it's nice. And so then, and so this is a trick that I guess e-commerce people do. I don't know if you've seen that. What they'll do is they'll have a model that maybe starts to get a lot of bad reviews. And then they'll go in and change it slightly so that they got a new model in hopes that it gets reviews. And so it was literally as I was about to check out, I'm looking, and I was like, because I think it had 5 stars. I was like, oh, okay, it got good reviews. And I was like, wait, hold on. This is only one review. It's only one review. And so then I started looking, I was like, let me just make sure. And sure enough, this thing had several bad reviews, and it was about pressure, like the pressure of the water. And they were saying, and so apparently there was some diverter that you had to buy with it, but it was supposed to be a whole system, and it really wasn't included. And so anyway, long story short, now I got to go back to the drawing board and figure out, because I didn't purchase it, because the reviews did influence it. Like I'll give you one, and it was also funny. Was this, we talked about how you respond, and one in our tagline for WSI is embrace digital, stay human, right?
Yep. And
so what's interesting here was whenever somebody responded poorly or great to in the review, there was always a response from, it's pretty well-known manufacturer, so I won't say who they were. But it was always a response. But you could tell there was an AI response. We're sorry you had that experience with our, it didn't, there was no empathy. There was no
personalization.
Nothing. Even when it was a good review. Thank you so much for the great review. Come on, do better than that. Or just don't respond to the good reviews if you can't. Conversely, I do have a medical sports massage company. I've talked about her before. go like somebody can respond to her, and within 4 hours, she has really good reviews. Within 4 hours, she's on it saying, really enjoyed you, Jim. I'm looking forward to working with you in the future. Like something very personal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and we even offered that service, like we can automate your response, but I tell them, yeah, we can, but it's just, no matter what, it's not going to be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're getting 10 a day, 10 or 20 a day, maybe you need to automate. But if you're not getting that many,
no, exactly. Hey,
take the time.
How do you guys, I've always asked this question of people because I'm curious, with travel reviews. In other words, when you're looking to choose a hotel and you're traveling, what approach do you take? I'm just curious. Like, what do you look at? Do you read them all? Do you read just the bad ones? Like, how do you guys decide on the hotel where you're going to stay? I know you're going to say I just cruise, so it's not a problem.
I usually look at the most recent, and I look at the 1, 2, 3 stars, and I see how old they are.
Okay.
And that's kind of the way I look, because usually, you can sort by numbers of stars, 4 or above or whatever. And then even with that, on average, if it's a 4, they're going to have a 1 or a 2 in there, right? So you read those and see how old they are. Mm-hmm. And then if it's old, if it was last week's, different story. But if it's old, then I'll say, it's okay.
Yeah.
Do you guys look at some of the good ones? Like
I look at the bad, I look at the good. You can see if it's somebody just having a bad day. Like I've seen people who be in paradise and they got stuff to complain about. Right. Like I can't with them. But if they say they got roaches, then and it was yesterday.
My daughter,
give the benefit of the doubt.
My daughter and her 5 girlfriends just went to a Pitbull concert in just outside of Niagara Falls, and they're all pitching in. I mean, they don't have a lot of money, right? So they're all pitching in. And first hotel, the reviews were good, but then when first room they went in, 3 roaches. So,
oh my God.
Yeah. And I asked them, are you gonna write a review? And they said, oh, maybe. And I said, well, you got to warn other people. You can't not go to. Yeah, it's the only way they're going to fix it. That's funny. In our networking groups, our BNI groups, last week, literally just last week, I did my 45-second little pitch on this very topic, and as a more of an educational point, Google only accepts removals. So if you do get that 1-star review, here are the only things Google will allow you to use as your reason to get rid of that review. So, the one I mentioned earlier. So the review wasn't actually for that business. It was for a completely different business. So that's one. If it's a fake review, so there are ways, I guess, to tell that it's a robot or a fake review was placed on your business. If there's a conflict of interest and it's from your own staff, so a pissed off staff member leaves a review, or a competitor who's just being a jerk, that's a reason. They'll let you, if you can prove it, they'll let you take it out. If there's any kind of swearing or profanity in the review, that's another good one. Any kind of bullying or harassment in the review, that's another good one. And if there's any kind of hate speech, any kind of sort of racism or anything like that. And last, this one was a bit of a surprise. If there's private information about people being put into that review, that's the other one. So I think we all agree negative reviews do matter, but to Kelly's point, it's not life a life ending kind of situation. We can do that. And I know when we talk to our clients, we tell them, the important thing is sometimes when it's a legitimate review and I can't remove it, the best way to tackle it is get a bunch of good ones. And they do move down the path. They're going to be there forever, but you're still going to be a 4.5 company, which is, like you said, that makes you look real to people.
Yeah. I also think it might be an opportunity for you. Like if you've been getting good scores and then all of a sudden you see a drop off and they start talking about service issues, then you might have a staffing problem. You might need to up staff. You might need to coach some people. you might need to fire somebody, but use it also as an indication. It's a way to check the pulse of your business.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, you have to have that conversation. It's like not everyone gets 5-star reviews. And so look at your competitors. And as long as you're above the competitors, you're great.
Yeah.
I mean,
Or
you want
close to
to strive.
par.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's all relative.
Yeah.
And depending on the industry, some industries, it's a tough grade. I mean,
Yeah.
if it's emergency services, or I would think what I see as attorneys have a tough time with reviews. I mean,
If
you're
it's
either going to get
merchants-
1s or 5s. Yeah.
Yeah. If it's merchant services, same thing. Like they
Yep,
can't
exactly.
guide.
So it's all relative.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do you guys, before we move on to the next myth, do you guys have a cutoff that you won't go below? So whatever it is, like whether it's jewelry, whether it's travel, like if it's 3.9 or 4.0 and below, you don't even bother with the company. It has to be between 4 and 5.
It's recency for me, like Jim said, because I mean, again, I think people are pessimistic in general. So I'm just like, I can't be bothered with somebody having a bad day. But I do care about, where are you today?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That review was a moment in time. So I am very interested in where you are today.
And the average, what does the average have to be for you? So out of 50 reviews.
Again, it depends on what it is. It has to be on par. To me, it has to be on par. I'll tell you this, like I've never picked, let's just say whether it's a hotel, I've never picked a hotel that's a 4.5 over a 4.4 because they were 4.5.
Mm-hmm.
But I might have picked a 4.5 over a 4.0.
Okay.
So if they're on par and I got a good recommendation and it's not the end all be all, but if it's not on par, I'm probably not going to shoot. That's my test. What about you, Jim?
Yeah, I'm the same way. I think it's, if it's over a 4 and relatively speaking, you're looking at other things. I think that's the way people look at it. I think it's so easy to be angry or upset about something and write a bad review.
Right.
I mean, how many times do you not write a good review when you probably should have or could have? But the anger thing seems to stick with you a little bit longer, right? And I think that's what happens a lot. And sometimes it's just not fair. I mean, like the jewelry situation, or
right.
I think we run into it a lot with home services where I needed a new furnace or I needed a new hot water heater and I didn't want to have to spend the money. So I wasn't happy. Well, did they do a good job? Did they, but you're not going to get, it's still that I had to spend X number of dollars. So, it's not fair. Well, you probably had to spend those same dollars with anybody you called to replace that, whatever, you know what I mean? So
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I'm similar to you guys. I definitely try to stay between 4 and 5 because you're right. 4.5, 4.4, there's no difference. But I do then, like, let's say I find 5 locations, hotels that I like in that range. Then I dig into the recent lower reviews and why. Because recency is really important. So we're all very similar. And I'm sure most people do it the same way. Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and go to the last one that we want to cover today, and that is paid ads will solve all your problems. And I know you guys have a lot of experience with pay-per-click and Google and that whole process. I tend to with paid ads, I tend to try to use it mostly if it's a service where there's a local service ads or a Google guaranteed piece attached to it, because we all know, right? The local service ads program at least guarantees a true lead before your paid ad budget gets depleted. And I think that was a great addition by Google. And by the way, I'm starting to see TV ads for local service ads now. I'd never seen those before. So Google's out there advertising this program and supporting it quite a bit. When I call their call center for this particular service of Google, I actually get people answering the call, and it's right away. for anything else Google does, good luck trying to get a live body, helping you out. So I'm guessing it's doing really well as a program. And for those that don't, like, I'm not going to spend a lot of time describing it, but basically the bottom line is it costs money to advertise on Google. There's a whole bunch of trades that are on the list. Some trades are not on the list. I know in Canada, we don't have, like, for example, painters are not on the list yet. I know in the US they are. But the bottom line is you're putting in money and you're setting your budget. And the only way your budget gets depleted is if it's a true lead. You actually have a name, a phone number. You get to talk to the person. Whereas it's a little different in the original world of pay-per-click advertising with Google. So I know you guys probably have a bunch of stories on that. Will paid ads always solve all your problems, or no?
The first thing that comes to mind is a few attorneys that I've worked with that, you just have to keep paying and paying and paying. And especially when you talk about personal injury, where the cost per click is pretty high. Mm-hmm. And so it's almost like playing poker. And so each person has to pay more and more and more to get the same number of leads or to get that same opportunity. And so at some point, you've got to try to change that, because if you get on that merry-go-round, you're going to just keep paying. And they get used to the number of leads. But if the leads, I've had situations where we've had the conversation where they're not getting the same number of leads, they're still spending a lot of money. And so their hit rate is low. And so what else do you do? And that's when you start talking about SEO, because you can't just rely on paid ads. I've also had situations with paid ads where, if like home services, if they're willing to spend more money, if a company's willing to spend more money and they have a good number of reviews and they have 5-star reviews and that kind of thing, and they're willing to spend more money, Google is going to favor them and does favor them over companies that don't spend as much on their budget. And so as much as you want to rely on that as a lead generation source, all it takes is for your competitors to spend a little bit more, and you can't rely on that. And so that's a tough thing to deal with, and it's hard to explain. I've had tough conversations just saying, you're spending X number of thousands of dollars, your competitors are spending more, and so they're getting more impressions. They're being shown more than you are, and there's not much we can do about that. You can try to outshine them with reviews, but if it's a pay-to-play kind of program, and if you don't do it, you're just not going to be shown as much. Yeah. I've talked about the situation before with local service ads, like you're talking about, John. Mm-hmm. I had a carpet cleaner that wanted to get involved with local service ads. We got him all set up, and he wasn't showing up because his budget was lower and he didn't have enough reviews. And so we added the reviews. He went out to his clients and got more reviews, and that helped. And we increased his budget a bit. And as soon as he did that, you could start to see more more leads coming in. Mm-hmm. And that it's one of those things when you start to see that, then you can kind of prove your point, saying now you've got the reviews, your budget's a little higher, you're going to be shown more often, you're going to have more opportunity to get those leads. You still need to sell the person. No matter what happens with these leads, you still, the marketing hands it off to sales, and that's where we hand it off to the company, and they say, okay, now you got to answer the phone, you got to, whatever you have to do. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But those are just some examples of just assuming that if you throw money at it, it's going to work. Isn't the case. It still takes some finesse, and you still need to know what's going on with your competitors to be able to be competitive.
How much, as a quick follow-up question, how much of the success of pay-per-click Google advertising is the person on the other side and their smarts and their expertise in terms of, how they bid, how they choose the keywords, how they strategize, and how much is just really, it's just about the money. Like the more money you throw at it, the better Google recognizes you and, and gives you, slightly preferential treatment.
I think it's really, you have to be smart. because if you don't, especially with like negative keywords and stuff, you're going to be paying for leads that you never wanted in the first place. So it's being smart and understanding what the what your goals are, and then going towards those goals and designing your campaigns around those goals. Because if you don't, then you're wasting money. And even if you have a big budget, you're going to get a bunch of leads that don't have any value.
And this isn't a set it and forget it kind of deal, is it? Like,
No. No.
Okay.
No. You got A/B test on those and see which keywords are working and see which phrases work and what is kind of emotionally attaching to those people that are interested.
Remember when we were back in the day, and this has been a long time for all of us, but you're taking a standardized test, and whenever they ask you, whenever you see the word always, you just ignore it, right? That's always the wrong answer. So, and this applies. So this,
that's fair. That's fair.
It's the wrong answer in the way that it's always going to be all things. However, I'm going to caveat it and say it. All of the businesses that want you to do paid ads are in the business of making money. So I can almost guarantee you if they're paying money, they want you to be successful. Now, for sure, you're going to have more success depending on, if you have the right strategy attached to that. So I remember, and I'll tell you what I mean exactly by that. I remember working with a lawyer. And same, just as we've talked about, keywords for lawyers were really, really high. And lawyers, they must have a lot of time on their hands. Like lawyers will even click on their competitors' keywords because they see that it's a pay-per-click and drive up the price. But they're driving up for everybody, right?
Yeah, including themselves.
So I mean, I just think it's a mean and dumb tactic, but nevertheless, this is what they do. So it's working with a lawyer who was, I would almost say, deflated by knowing how much their keywords cost. And so we developed a strategy, which is this. What we noticed, we wanted, it was going to cost a certain amount just to be seen in the pay-per-click ads. So when they would then go to the landing page, I did a token, so to speak, right? And so then when that person left the website, then you have to put this in your privacy policies, all that's important. But when they went to Facebook, they would get an ad. That's called retargeting. And so why that's important is you see this all the time in e-commerce, for example, right? You went to Amazon, you were going to buy that big screen TV, or worse, you were going to get something for your wife, and if you didn't hide your internet, now she knows what she's getting for Christmas.
Exactly.
Go incognito, people. Go incognito. Anyway, so what then happens is, you get an email, hey, you left something in your bag. Or, you're back on again and, hey, did you forget something? You're on a completely different site. And so there are ways, and those ads actually cost less than that pay-per-click ad. So you pay for the pay-per-click once, right? That's the Google ad. It's the most expensive. I don't know. LinkedIn might be a little bit more.
I think LinkedIn's a little more expensive.
I think so. That's mostly tends to be more B2B
LinkedIn
focused.
LinkedIn is more to B2B, and you got to have big budgets to play with LinkedIn ads.
Absolutely.
Right? So just in general, for the general population, let's just say, and clearly for my client, we were talking, if you're B2C, you're talking Google paid ads or some other things. So the other options that you have, my point is try to be strategic. Like what we did was there's a solution that we have that just kind of looked at the money based on your money, and they split it up. Like some part went to display, some part went to targeting, and some part went to traditional PPC. And the money still ended up being the same that this lawyer had to spend, but the cost per acquisition went down significantly.
Okay.
And so to answer your second question, John, working with people who understand that there's more ways to skin the cat.
Yeah.
And we're not skinning cats. We're not. No, like don't come after us. But there's more than one way to get the job done, right?
Cats would be an interesting topic in Ohio these days. But.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, that's what I have for you.
Yeah, no, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but over the years, we've come to the understanding that having a pay-per-click strategy is important. I mean, I have a really good friend of mine who he's an immigration lawyer, and he swears by having not just pay-per-click. He spends quite a bit. He spends about $20,000 a month on pay-per-click ads, but he says there's no way he would do without his SEO strategy. It's both. He said, he goes, I have my pay-per-click, but I'd never get rid of my SEO. And he goes, my goal is just to keep all my people working. They love working. They love what they do. And I'm really disappointed when I see it slow. And he goes, I need both. I've found when I tried, even when my SEO, he said, became really good, and I was on page 1 for a lot of my keywords, almost all of them, he said. And he said, for sure, I was getting leads because of SEO, no question about it. But that extra little bit that I really needed to keep my team constantly busy came from pay-per-click. And so he said, I'm not giving up pay-per-click. I'll never give it up, because I'd love to, take that $20,000 budget and move it somewhere else. But I've seen when I do that, and he's tried it a few times, he brought it down to about 10. I think even 5 once. And he just said, no way. Everything falls apart. And I said, well, Google's on both ends of it. I said, they're on the SEO end and the PPC end. So they know what you're doing and they know what you're trying to do. So adjustments are made everywhere. So he's staying with it. So does it solve all your problems? No. But it does solve quite a bit especially if you're in an industry where it's highly competitive, and most industries are these days, especially lawyers.
Yeah.
Hey, John, one thing I wanted to circle back to, because I started talking about you're getting retargeted and things like that. And so from a consumer standpoint, like how you stop that. So some of the things, I'll just throw another myth out there. People might believe that if I'm on a VPN, for example, then I'm not going to get targeted. A virtual
private network.
You can still get targeted. Where it matters is, when you're on those sites, and I'll tell you how I address it. But if you're on a site and it says, we have cookies, and you can choose, like, remove me. I don't want you to do any cookies. I think it's a little unfair if you're on the site, because they're just trying to, in some instances, opt out of them doing anything except let them be able to get the marketing data from you. They just want to know how to market to other people. But you can say, I don't want to be retargeted.
True.
And so, so there's, generally for me, it depends on how urgent it is. If I want to get something, I'm like, accept all the cookies. Let me get this answer.
Just go. Yeah.
I want the answer. But that's where you would get the answer. If you're trying not to be retargeted to, it's in the cookies.
And that wraps up another episode. My name is John.
This is Jim.
And I'm Kelly. Thanks for joining. Hey, don't forget to subscribe.
Thank you for tuning in to Why Your Business is Invisible Online. If you enjoyed today's episode, please do us a favor and subscribe and follow us on Spotify and Apple. Be sure to share it with other business owners who might find it helpful. If you want to dig deeper, contact us at ruinvisibleonline.com. That's capital letter R, capital letter U, followed by invisibleonline.com. Or message us on our LinkedIn business profile with the same title, Are You Invisible Online? The information shared in this podcast is for educational purposes only and should not be considered professional advice. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and may or may not reflect the official policy or position of WSI Corporate. Always consult a qualified digital marketing expert before making significant changes to your online strategy. Until next time, keep connecting with the people who matter most to your business and join us for our next episode.